Welcome back to the It Starts With You podcast. I am so excited for our guest today, Melanie Stuber. Melanie, thank you for joining us.
Oh, Julie, thank you so much for having me.
We've had an opportunity to meet in person, and I feel like we could have just talked and talked because we have so many similarities in regards to what we think about leadership and culture and companies. So really excited for Melanie today. We're going to be talking a few things around presence, using our voice. And what I love that Melanie focuses on is really the power of using your network and what you call your personal board and how that can help you thrive. So Melanie Stuber is a former executive in the financial services industry, turned founder and CEO of Cultivate and Thrive, LLC, which empowers women leaders to achieve their goals with clarity and confidence while driving meaningful impact in their organization. As a business strategy and culture guide, keynote speaker, and workshop facilitator, she helps leaders navigate the complexities of leadership and culture with purpose and influence. Through a dynamic community, personalized guidance, and an accelerator program, Melanie provides the strategies and support women need to break barriers, elevate their leadership, and thrive at the highest levels. And I know those who are listening are nodding and going, yes, please give me more of that. So, Melanie, I really want to just start by give us a little bit of your background. I know we get like a little glimpse in people's bios, but what's your background? Give us a little bit of your story and what led you into what it is that you're doing now.
Oh, absolutely, Julie. And again, thank you so much for having me here today. I'm so excited about our conversation. So I spent more than 25 years in the corporate sector. I started out as a CPA and I was placed on financial services clients. So I spent my entire career in the financial services industry. And I'm very grateful for my career in corporate, the leaders that I had the opportunity to work with. And I came up to a point in my career where I felt a calling to do something more. I felt like that my career had brought me to a point where I can continue to serve others, and in particular, women. So a few years ago, I made the transition from my corporate career to start my own business, as you mentioned, Cultivate and Thrive. Mm-hmm. And while I do welcome working with all leaders, I'm very passionate and purposeful with working with women leaders because of my own journey. So oftentimes I was one of the only women in the room, and not to say that's a good or bad thing. It's more about I know what that looks and feels like, and having gone through that journey and meeting so many incredibly talented women who I feel that there's an opportunity for them to see that they are rock stars and to help to build their confidence, because I've been there. I know what it's like to have that self-doubt, to feel like your voice isn't being heard. And so I want to help these women to continue to build their confidence and empower them in their leadership so they can break through their own barriers, because that's a journey I went through as well. So I'm very excited about this journey that I've been on and this opportunity to help women leaders. And Julie, you and I touched on this a little bit. I'm also excited to help individuals. And by the way, when I say leaders, I believe everyone's a leader, wherever they are in their journey. And what I've learned when I made this transition from corporate to own my own business, I was really intentional with building my support system. I refer to it as a personal board of directors, regardless of whether you call it a personal board of directors or whatever the naming mechanism is. The important point is to know that you don't have to be everything and know everything to everyone. And it's important to understand your strengths and to surround yourself with those who have strengths that can help you to navigate the highs and lows of your role. And since I was making such an incredibly big leap, right, from corporate to owning my own business, I knew I needed that support system. And Julie, what I learned was I had my personal board of directors throughout my corporate career, and I wasn't being intentional with those relationships. So it's really important to me when I meet with leaders, whether it's through speaking engagements or workshops or one-on-one, to make sure that they have that opportunity to take a step back and look at their network, their support system, to see where are they and where are their opportunities to continue to build their support system so they feel that they have the support they need to continue to thrive. So this has been a popular topic that I've been speaking to in the last couple of years, and I absolutely enjoy speaking about it because it's not all about me sharing my learnings. It's also this shared learning experience where I have the opportunity. I very much like to open it up to the audience where they can engage and share their perspectives. And so it's just been a joy to meet so many leaders in the community and hear their stories.
Yeah, and I love that when we were talking about, what we wanted to talk on this episode about, and you mentioned this personal board of directors, so powerful. And I think that is a piece that not as many people are talking about. And I love that you even share the insight of when you made the transition, you were able to identify some gaps that you could have been leveraging more. And so there's two directions I really want to talk about. First, I want to start because I think you hit on something really important. And for any, women listening right now who might also be trying to grow in their career and their leadership in a male-dominated industry, because we hear this come up, at women's leadership events when they're working on using their voice and presence.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about that first, and then I want to talk about this personal board of directors. So from your perspective, what were maybe some of your lessons or some of the things that you would tell to women now if they are working in a more male-dominated industry and they don't feel like maybe they are the only woman in the room and they feel like they want to be heard more, but they're maybe not?
Yeah. So I learned to first start with yourself. As I mentioned, I believe everyone's a leader and leadership starts with yourself and your self-awareness. So when I speak, I talk about a framework that talks about your inner leadership. So that's how you show up as a leader. Your outer leadership. So that's the traditional definition or view of leadership, how you lead, for example, and then your relationship with others. That's how you're networking with purpose, how you're cultivating relationships, and then building your support system. And for me, I think it really was important for me to take a step back and understand, one, what are my core values? Because your core values are your North Star. They're the reasons why you make the decisions you make. They might be the reasons why if you make a decision, it doesn't feel right or sit well with you, so you readjust. And so I think it's important to understand what your core values are, not only from a personal perspective, but also from a business perspective. The other thing I learned is to know your worth, because I think oftentimes we connect our worth to our work, but our worth is much bigger, much broader than achieving our goals. It's what makes us uniquely us. It's our expertise, it's our experiences, it's our learnings. And so a lot of times before I even go into the conversation about looking at your support system, who could be your personal board, is really starting with you and what makes you uniquely you. Because the other part, and this transitions really well to, is advocating for yourself. And so I grew up, I'm showing my age a little bit here, where I learned to get the work done because that shows your value. And so I learned the hard way, particularly because now we live in such a busy society that it's really important to be transparent and the value that you contribute not only to your organization, to your community, because there could be that certain knowledge or expertise that's needed somewhere else where you can help. And so you would be remiss if you didn't consistently have a conversation with your peers, your leadership, on the value that you contribute to others. Again, this gets back to your worth. And when you're building relationships with others, you're naturally building advocates. So when you advocate for yourself, they will naturally advocate for you when you're in the room. And when you advocate for yourself, you're opening doors to opportunities. For example, being viewed as a thought leader and a trusted person within your organization, gaining access when you talk about your needs, advocating for maybe something you need for your personal growth. And so advocating for mentorship or resources that helps you to grow in your leadership. And really the opportunity to position yourself well is to be thought of, again, when you're not in the room so others can champion for you. So it's really important. And again, I learned this probably in the latter half of my career. And while I feel that I'm very proud of my career and I don't know if I would change anything, these are the things I think about that could be so helpful for men and women, regardless of where they're in their journey. So taking that time to really take a step back, understand your core values, understand how you're showing up with your knowing your value, and then how you're advocating for yourself.
And I love that too. Obviously, the name of the podcast is It Starts With You. So I love when my guests are like, yeah, it does start with you, right? Because it really is so many people, and you experience in your career, and I'm sure with the clients you work with, is they're like, yeah, how do I get the next level position, or how do I get people to, advocate for me for that promotion or that new opportunity or whatever it might be. But what I love you're saying is before we even get there, we need to be championing for ourselves. So I love these words that you said. It's like, first you have to really know your own worth. You need to advocate and champion. I jotted these all down. These are such good words. So for those of you listening, write these down, right? You need to know your worth. You need to advocate and champion for yourself first, so that then you have that, I always say, that kind of presence and confidence that other people now want to advocate and champion for you too. And I think sometimes we get stuck in feeling like we need to figure it all out on our own. And we need to prove and force and prove ourselves, when really sometimes either asking for help or getting a team of people around you to help you maybe fill in the gaps for areas that you need to work on is the thing that will help you get there.
Yeah, and I learned that the hard way, because I think particularly being a female leader, I felt that additional pressure. Now, I'll just be full admit that could have been self-imposed pressure to feel like, again, I needed to know everything and be everything. And so as I was emerging as a leader, I really did not tap into those around me, especially those on my team, because I didn't want to be viewed as someone who didn't know what she was doing, or lose my credibility. And the reality is, and I love that now our mindset has changed. The reality is it's really important for leaders to reach out to their team and ask for help and ask for their perspectives, because that's how you continue to grow. So I definitely learned that as I was progressing through my career.
Yeah, and I see it all the time. And sometimes it's just this, I don't want people to think that I'm, I don't know everything, or that I'm not the right fit for this role. And so let's talk a little bit about, again, this personal board of directors. So we've started talking about it a little bit, but tell us a bit more about what do you mean by that, and what does that look like for somebody to create their own personal board of directors?
Yeah, so when I have this conversation, we already talked about it starts with you. The other part I mentioned is your relationship with others. So it's really important that you as a person continue to build relationships, whether you're meeting individuals at work or at networking events or professional associations, wherever you are. It's not necessarily meeting them, it's that follow through to cultivate those relationships, because that's where there's a lot of meaning. And I have to tell you, Julie, I am very much a relationship-based person. I really enjoy meeting people. Now, I understand that's not for everyone. And I will say, though, the more that you are intentional with reaching out to people and building those relationships, the more powerful that's going to be for you as a person, because you're building that trust, and it becomes natural when you do reach out for some support and for help, for them to reciprocate. So I spent a little bit of time talking about building your relationships and what that looks like, because I feel it's important to have those relationships that set you up well when you are ready to have a personal board. And when I talk about your personal board, I don't dive into, okay, this is what it looks like. First, it's important to understand your why. So why do you want a personal board? Are you at the beginning of your career? Or are you like myself when you made this big transition mid-career? Or perhaps you know the value of surrounding yourself with those who can help you to navigate the everyday highs and lows with your role. So I provide a framework that helps you to understand your whys. The first is knowing your value, which we talked about. Understanding what your goals are. So you want to make sure that you have an idea of what are your goals, so you're your personal board, your support system can help you. Also understanding where those growth opportunities are. So are you wanting to master a new skill, or maybe you got a promotion and you're looking for some support through that? And then really looking at what are those expertise and experiences and qualities that you're looking for in others. That gets back to, Julie, what we were talking about is knowing your strengths and then looking for what are those strengths in others that I need to help me. And so once we go through that exercise, that really helps us understand our why. And then the next step I offer is, what are those characteristics that you look for in others? It's really important. You're not just assembling people. This is something that you're investing time in them. They're investing time in you. So thinking about looking for those individuals who are going to help you to achieve your goals. So those are those individuals with that expertise, for example. And then looking for those individuals who are not only going to champion you and celebrate you, they're going to also challenge you in meaningful ways, because they're going to be your people. They're going to remind you of your worth. They're going to remind you of your vision, what your goals are, and they're going to help you to get to your goals, to achieve your goals. And then it's also really important to have a diverse board, whether it's backgrounds, perspectives, experiences, because the more diverse board you have, the more enriching your experiences. And then lastly, getting back to the relationships, you want to have individuals, you want to surround yourself with individuals who you can trust, there's mutual respect, you know you can be vulnerable with, and there's no judgment. So those are the characteristics that I typically look at and I share with others to think about as they're thinking about the individuals that they would like to reach out. And then we talk about the board roles. And so I have this standard roles of, there's your coach, your mentor, your sponsor, your peer, your expert. And then there's this other category that of this individual who plays such an important role in your life. However, they might not fit nicely into one of those other categories, and that's okay. It's important that they are part of your support system, your board. So then we go through that exercise of who in your life plays these roles and where might there be gaps or opportunities. And then lastly, I wrap up with accountability, because in all circumstances, there has to be that follow through, that accountability for it to be successful. So we talk about showing up, being prepared, because the more prepared you are, the more lead time you give your board members, the more they're going to be able to help you. And to be able, so one of the most important roles is to provide you feedback. And so to be open to their feedback and use that as a tool for growth and be curious and understand that feedback. That doesn't mean you need to act on all the feedback. You want to prioritize that feedback on what's going to help you to achieve your goals. And so regardless of whether you act on that feedback or not, it's also important to let your board members know how much you appreciate them and value them for their time and investment. And when you do act on their feedback, to let them know how it went, what were the outcomes, what were the learnings. And then also, when you inevitably, as much as you plan, there might be circumstances that change. And so to the extent that they change, to let your board know if it's relevant, because again, the more they know and can support you, the better. And then lastly, as we evolve as individuals, it's really important to evolve how we surround ourselves. So again, I'm very different today than I was even 3 years ago. So my board, if you will, that I was in corporate looks very different than my board today, because of my experiences are different and my needs and my challenges are different. So it's important to evolve your board so you can continue to thrive by surrounding those who can continue to support you. So I can go on and on about this topic, so I'm going to pause here, Julie.
It's so good. I have so many notes written down. That's why I'm like, okay, those listening, you might need to pause and go back and like listen, because this is really important. I really don't think people think of it this way, right? We can see, just your experience in this, like in the leadership space of just really thinking of it as your own personal board of directors. Not many times people, talk about networking and, getting an advocate in the company, but this whole idea of creating almost a whole board of people and so many great things that you shared about was like, first you need to be clear on why you want it, what your goals are, and identifying those individuals. And so a question I have for you, because I know this was something that I struggled with, and it's still something I work on, but definitely when I was earlier in my career, and I hear this a lot too from people who are emerging into roles, is this idea of like, well, I don't want to bother them. So for me, I felt like I would ask people for the initial meeting if I was trying to explore their roles or things like that. And it's like, okay, I could ask for the initial meeting, but the idea of asking them to like maybe continually meet with me or things like that would be like, well, I don't want to bother them. Or they told me to reach out, if I needed something, but I'm not going to. So I'm curious if you've experienced this or if you hear this from people and what you would say so that they change their perspective on that.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. I personally have not experienced that. I will say I can see that as a real possibility that would hold us back from reaching out. And my advice and recommendation is the worst that's going to happen is they're going to say no. My viewpoint is as humans, we naturally want to help each other. And so especially this gets back to the relationship part of the conversation, Julie, when you're building meaningful relationships with others and as they get to know you and there's that trust there, when you reach out, they are going to be so happy to support you. So it's all about being transparent on your needs, what it looks like, because yes, we live in a busy society, but the reality is we are here to help each other and support each other. So my advice is if there's somebody that you admire in your organization or someone that you consistently stay in touch with and there's something holding you back from asking, just ask. Because again, the worst thing that's going to happen is they're going to say no or not yet. And at least you have your answer and you can move on. I'm likely to say, though, most likely they're going to be very honored that one thought of them and reached out to them for support. And again, it's a two-way street, so you're also investing time in them. Is that helpful?
Yeah. No, I love that you say that because that's great points to say that more often than not, we're all in our head of making it way bigger deal than we need to. And more often than not, they want to help and they'll feel honored. And if they can't, it might just be like no, why are you asking me this? It might just be, hey, not right now, given what's going on. And then I love that piece because I think sometimes too, we can be a little bit like, what's in it for me? And so, you sharing to say, hey, it really does go both ways. So how can you find opportunities if someone's investing their time and knowledge and experience into you? How can you also pour into them? Maybe that's, by supporting them in something or making connections for them and really seeing it as this like reciprocal relationship versus just like, what's in it for me? I have all these things I want to achieve. How are you going to help me? Really seeing it both ways.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, a lot of times we tend to overthink, right? And as long as if we could stop overthinking and just ask the question, we'll learn that people are so willing to help and support us.
When you've done this and now helping others to do this, what are some of the things that you see as a result of people actually being intentional about creating this board of directors? Well,
everyone comes to this conversation at different points in their journey. And so I've had individuals come up to me afterwards and they'll say, I didn't even realize, that is probably the most common, is I didn't even realize I had a personal board of directors. And when we go through, because a lot of my workshops, well, not a lot, all my workshops and speaking engagements, I have guides and we go through different exercises. I'm very much an advocate of self-reflective exercises. And when they go through these exercises, it's this aha moment of, wow, I have all these people in my support system. I don't know if I realized this. And so it's really exciting for me when they come up to me and tell me afterwards, I have a personal board and I'm really excited to take the next step, whether it's identifying if they need to add anybody else to the board or just being more intentional and accountable and how they can cultivate those relationships. So I think that's probably the most I've heard as I've reached out to others within the community and speaking in different venues. And then I also, because I thought when I went through, and I should have shared this earlier on, when I went through this transition, I thought I was behind everybody else. I'm like, oh, certainly everybody has their personal board of directors. I'm a little bit behind. That's okay. And I was surprised to hear, and I don't mean this in a shameful way, that there's an opportunity here. So because of my own journey, that's another reason why I'm so passionate about sharing my experience and knowledge with others, because it helps so much to build your confidence and also know that not every day is going to be a good day. And that's okay. When you have the right people to surround you, they can help you to navigate through that. And it's been such an incredible experience to go through this. So the one is the realization of, oh my goodness, I didn't even realize I had this personal board. And then I've also heard feedback of, okay, I have a board and I realize I need to be a little bit more accountable. I'm like, oh, that's great. There's a great opportunity. But those are probably the two of the biggest pieces of feedback that I've received.
And I love too just the point of, this isn't something that you just do and then don't revisit at all, right? You emphasize, like, as you grow in different roles, or as you make big transitions like we both have, right, you have to re-examine who you have on that your personal team, and really figure out, well, who do I need now for this current stage that I'm in and the stage that I'm aspiring to move into. And so kind of having it as this like living, breathing, document that you're revisiting and seeing, who do I need? And I just love this, because I think so often in this space, we're so focused on like our own self-development, our own personal development, and we forget there is so many people that we can have. Just love this idea of team. I'm like, ooh, I need to go back and revisit my team, right? And who is it that you have to help make connections, to help challenge you, to help support you, but from those different things. So this conversation is so needed, and I'm so excited that you're talking about. One of the things I would challenge for those of you listening is to just do this. First of all, thinking about, who do I have on my personal board of directors? Have you thought about this before? And maybe even start writing this down and thinking about, where do I have gaps that I could be filling these in?
Yeah. For me, the reason why I have those guys, Julie, to your point, is I know there's a lot of value in applying what you learn in the moment. And while I would not suggest that everyone needs to complete that exercise, because a lot of it is reflective, thinking about it, coming back to it, knowing that you start that exercise in the room and you can continue to come back to that. And we continue to evolve as individuals, as leaders. And so at least having that framework to come back to and revisit is so helpful and is very powerful.
Melanie, thank you so much for joining for this conversation, for getting all of our wheels turning. As people are listening and they want to stay connected with you, where can they find you, and what do you want to share with those listening?
Well, again, it's been such a pleasure, and Julie, the time just flew by. I could talk to you all day. So, two things that are coming up in May, which may or may not be helpful for others, is I'm speaking at the Metro Milwaukee Society of Human Resource Management Conference on May the 7th on this particular topic. And then I'm also speaking on the next day, on May 8th, for Disrupt HR, how we think about the traditional mentor coaching model, how we can shift that to think about this board. You can find me at cultivatethrive.com. And I do share weekly newsletters on leadership, strategy, and culture guidance. And I'll be happy to share that information with you, Julie, so you can share that out with your listeners.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll make sure that we drop that in the show notes. For those of you listening, then you can go check it out, subscribe to the newsletter, and stay tuned on where Melanie's speaking, hopefully in the area that you can check it out, or subscribe to her newsletter, because I know you have master classes and things that you host as well, so people can check those out. So Melanie, thank you so much again for joining us. All of you listening, I hope this was helpful. Be sure to send Melanie a note thanking her, letting her know what stood out. Share those with others so that we can all help to really grow in our own personal board of directors.
Thank you.